Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. It's Wednesday, October 29th. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Two large glaciers in the Sierra Nevada were thought to be hundreds of years old. New research reveals they're much older than that, and their future is uncertain.
It means when they go away this century, which they're projected to, it means that people will see ice-free slopes for the first time ever.
We will learn more about these glaciers near Yosemite National Park, but first, these headlines. Policymakers are looking at the possibility of population decline in Fresno County. Our newsroom partner Fresno Land reports the state's Department of Finance released a report last month projecting population decline in the next few decades. Key factors are a trend in slowing global movement and federal immigration policies. A declining population would likely impact developments, planning, and the economy. California Attorney General Rob Bonta denounced federal plans to send election monitors to California next week. Frank Stoltz with our news partner LAist has this report.
Bonta said federal election monitors are welcome in California, but not necessary. He questioned the Trump administration's motives, saying they were designed to sow fear among immigrant voters and to bolster the president's narrative of election fraud.
This is a tee-up for something more dangerous in the 2026 midterms and maybe beyond.
The California Republican Party requested the monitors, citing voting irregularities in some counties, including that some voters received incorrect ballots in past elections.
That was Frank Stoltz with LAist. Fresno and Kern counties are among the counties where federal election monitors are being deployed. A man is currently walking across the state to raise money and awareness for victims of wildfires. Dimitri Camperos lost his home in the wildfire that destroyed the community of Altadena earlier this year and left 19 people dead. Camperos tells KVPR that he's walking 500 miles from Altadena northward to Paradise. That community was destroyed in 2018 by the Camp Fire. Camperos is right now passing through Tulare County. Researchers at the Center for Western Weather and Water Extremes have spent years working on an improved way to manage reservoirs called Forecast-Informed Reservoir Operations, or FIRO. Cap Radio's Manola Sakita has more on the program that's now being used at a Northern California lake for the first time.
FIRO integrates newer tools and scientific advancements to help reservoir operators make decisions on when to store and release water. Chad Hecht is a research and operations meteorologist at the Center for Western Weather and Water Extremes. He says many reservoir operators currently make decisions based on decades-old manuals that don't reflect advancements made in the science of forecasting.
The idea is we can use this forecast technology to say, okay, we just got a storm, we're above the limit that the water control manual says we should be at, but let's hold on to it because there's nothing in the forecast that says we'll get that water back.
He says the center plans to bring FIRO to more reservoirs in California, as well as other interested states, including Washington. In Sacramento, I'm Manola Sakita.
The Kern County Water Agency hired its former board president to be its new general manager. Our news partner SJB Water reports the hiring came with a whopping salary for Eric Averett. He'll be paid just over $500,000 to serve as general manager, on top of thousands of dollars in bonuses. The agency oversees 13 water districts. Averett's appointment was unanimous.
Support for Central Valley Daily comes from the members of KVPR. Join at $8 or more per month and access ad-free NPR podcasts through NPR Plus. Give now at kvpr.org/donate.
And now to our main story. The climate is changing, and one feature in the Sierra Nevada is a key indicator of that change. Glaciers have existed for thousands of years in nearby Yosemite and Kings Canyon national parks. But new research published in the journal Science Advances shows that these glaciers are projected to disappear by the end of the century. To understand how researchers came to this conclusion, today I'm speaking to Andy Jones. He's a doctoral candidate at the University of Wisconsin-Madison and a co-author of the paper. Andy begins by explaining where the glaciers he studied are and just how big they are in size.
So the glaciers that we studied are in Yosemite National Park. It was the Lyle and McClure glaciers, as well as the Kness Glacier, which is just on like the northern ridge. If you've ever hiked along the Pacific Crest Trail or the John Muir Trail, as you get near Donahue Pass and you look up, you'll see actually the Lyle Glacier right there on the mountain. And you can see it from the Tuolumne Meadows as well. Yeah, and we hiked these glaciers. I would say they're probably a few football fields in size. There's historical photography that's in the paper showing in the late 1800s sort of how large they were. And they used to be 60, 70, 80 feet deep, like thick. And now, at least one of the glaciers, the East Lyle Glacier, is almost entirely gone.
You know, I have to say, when I hear the word glacier, I do think of Antarctica or like a glacier out in the ocean. Can you explain to us what exactly are these glaciers that are in the Sierra Nevada and just how they're different from maybe what comes to mind for folks when they hear that word?
Yeah, so Antarctica is a massive ice sheet. You can think of like pancake batter on a pan, right? It's big and it's flat and it's diffuse and it's spreading out. Antarctica is larger than the size of the contiguous United States. These alpine glaciers, they're more like, blobs of snow and ice on the slopes of mountains. Every year we get snow, right? And it comes top of the mountains. And then eventually, if you have more snow in a given year than you melt away, right? Your snow persists. And you do this over hundreds, thousands of years, you get ice that builds up. And that is the glacier itself. And it's sort of slowly sliding and flowing downhill.
Okay, alpine glaciers. Good to make the difference there. So you made some significant discoveries in a newly published research paper, and one of those is that these glaciers in the Sierra Nevada are older than originally thought. Why is that significant?
Yeah, so people had thought that glaciers in California and Sierra Nevada were ephemeral features, coming and going within the last 10,000 years, which comprises sort of the modern climate state in which agriculture developed, right? And most of recorded human history is in this time. And we found that glaciers had survived that entire interval, it turns out, which is wild because it means when they go away this century, which they're projected to, it means that people will see ice-free slopes for the first time ever.
Wow.
I mean, if you think that the peopling of the Americas happened, 20,000 years ago, right? We had an ice age around that time. So there's been ice there for a really long time, sort of until now.
And how did you measure the age of these glaciers? Like, what does on the ground that sort of research look like?
Yeah, so we quite literally hiked the glaciers, which again, really lovely. Got to do some of the John Muir Trail. Wonderful. You walk right up to the terminus or the edge of the ice. You can literally put a hand on the melting glacier ice, and then you're standing on bedrock, right, which the glacier is resting on. And we do this technique that I'll sort of liken to charging up a battery with a solar panel. When bedrock is not covered by the glacier, it's sitting at the surface of the earth. There's particles from space raining down, and the rock actually becomes charged, so to speak.
Oh.
When the glacier is bigger and it's covering this bedrock, it's shielding it from exposure and it doesn't get charged. And what we found in the rock was no charge at all, which told us, wow, this bedrock has not seen the light of day for a very long time.
Wow. So longer than originally thought. How old was it originally thought to be, and what did you discover that it is?
We thought that you might expect to see like 7,000 years of exposure, followed by 3,000 years of burial. So 3,000 years ago is when these glaciers are thought to have reformed. And yeah, we were really surprised to see nothing at all.
Yeah. What was that like for you? Was that your first time going to those glaciers?
So the way it came about actually is that we did a study looking at 4 different glaciers in North America, one in Alaska, British Columbia, Wyoming, and the Wind River Range, and then one in California, this Kness Glacier that's on the northern border of Yosemite National Park. And when we got that data back, we saw this sort of blanked signal. And we were like, wow, that's not what we expected at all. Like, we need to go back. So then I actually didn't collect that first round of samples, but then I went back in 2021 to do sort of this mission to go to Lyle and McClure and test those glaciers. Yeah, and we actually ended up going back a third time to really make sure we were seeing what we thought we were seeing.
I have to ask because I'm curious, you're based in Wisconsin, so why study these glaciers in the Sierra? How is this relevant to the work you're doing?
Yeah. So one of the most interesting fun facts is that John Muir studied geology here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And he went to California and was actually the first person to document flowing ice on the McClure Glacier in the late 1800s. So there's actually a long tradition of geologists from the University of Wisconsin studying glaciers in Yosemite.
Okay, I have to pivot to some sort of unfortunate findings, though, which is that your research suggests that these glaciers in the Sierra could disappear in the next 75 years. So what is causing them to melt?
Yeah, as the planet warms up, you melt more ice than you make. I think of it as a budget, right? If you run a deficit every year, sooner or later you run out of money. That's what's happening to our glaciers, right? They still get snow every year, but it's less and less snow, and more melt. And as the planet warms from human-caused greenhouse gas emissions, the glaciers are going to go away.
So what kind of impacts, you mentioned looking back, but also looking forward, what kind of impacts could the loss of these glaciers potentially have on areas like the Central Valley or other parts of California? Yeah,
so the glaciers in the Sierra Nevada have a key sort of ecological role. Most of the water comes from snowpack, right? That's what feeds the rivers. And when the snow melts, and let's say you have a drought year where you don't get a lot of snow, or a really warm year, right? And you burn through that snow. What keeps the rivers flowing at some sort of stable level is glacial melt. When you lose the glaciers, you're sort of losing your piggy bank of water, right, to have for bad times. And it's honestly not clear what the ecological implications of that will be, because in the last 30,000 years, we haven't seen it.
So wild to think about. Before I let you go, Andrew, what's next for you? Will you be coming back to the Sierras to do more research, or what's next after these big findings?
I don't have any plans to come back to the Sierras right now. I'm actually writing a federal grant to come back to the Sierras, which, as you might think, is a little bit up in the air right now. It's unclear if the program will be funded.
Andy Jones, PhD candidate in the Department of Geosciences at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
And that is today's show. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. You can find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
Sources and methods, the crown jewels of the intelligence community. Shorthand for how do we know what's real? Who told us? If you have those answers, you're on the inside, and NPR wants to bring you there. From the Pentagon to the State Department to spy agencies, listen to understand what's really happening and what it means for you. Sources and Methods, the new national security podcast from NPR.